This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the FNIA podcast. We are served by Applebee's. You know Coach Dungy, you know Rodney Harrison. And gentlemen, I want to start with coaching changes because at this point in the year, you have the playoff teams, and then you have the opposite end of this equation. And we have some one-and-dones. And those one-and-dones are Antonio Pierce with Vegas and Coach Mayo with the New England Patriots. So, Coach Dungy, I know that this is your universe, and you know it better than anybody. Give me your take off the top. I see you shaking your head.
I am just totally disgusted with this. And these two, especially former players, guys who went into very difficult situations, things didn't go the way they wanted. But to me, this is just not right. It's bad ownership, bad organization. I don't even know what to say. 1 year is not enough to find out what people are going to do. My coach in Pittsburgh, Chuck Noll, was 1-13 his first year. He won 4 Super Bowls. Tom Landry won 1 game his first year. He won 2 Super Bowls. I played on Bill Walsh's first team. We were 2-14. Walsh won 3 Super Bowls. Nowadays, if you start out like this, you'd be done. That's 9 Super Bowls that wouldn't have happened with this type of thinking. I just think it's totally wrong and unfair to these guys, Rod.
Coach, I agree with you. And I think Antonio Pierce is a good person. The players came out last year. They supported him. They wanted him as the head coach. And how do you fire a guy after 1 year when you don't have a quarterback? Aiden O'Connell, I mean, come on now. You don't have a quarterback. He can't compete. But the guy showed you other things. His ability to get those guys motivated despite all the losing and just everything that he brought. And it's just really disappointing. And if I'm a guy, do you take a job like that, Coach?
Yeah,
And maybe get a right. Do you take that job and maybe, of course you don't have 5 years guaranteed, but maybe they give you 5 years of salary guaranteed. Maybe that's the kiss off, basically for you taking that job. But I'm just not a big fan of it. I was very disappointed in this firing.
Yeah, and same thing with the Crafts. When you say, hey, we've got this plan in place to replace Bill Belichick, we knew he was going to be leaving sooner or later, and Gerard Mayo's our guy, and this is how we're going to do it. And then in 1 year you say, well, no, we don't like that plan. It wasn't very good. I just don't like that at all. I go back to my first year in Tampa, Rod and Jack. We were 0-5 at the bye, and the owners called me and took me to lunch and said, you know what? Hey, this isn't a 1-year project. We're with you. Don't feel like you got to win games right now. We know we're going to get better. Don't worry about your job. And I tell you, that did so much for me. You don't want to think about your job anyway, but to know that your owners have confidence, it doesn't matter. We ended up, coming back and winning a little bit down the stretch that year. But you can't judge a guy on 5 games or 10 games or 1 year. It's just ridiculous.
And at times, they say Antonio, he struggled with clock management, but we saw the same thing from veteran coaches. How many times have we sat up there and broken down Jason Garrett and his struggle with Tony Romo? How many times have we taken Raheem Morris just a couple weeks ago? This is a guy that's been a head coach a couple times. He's been a great assistant for a long time. And we talk about mismanagement. And I look at the Raiders, they have this new ownership group with all these hands in the pot. And basically they're going to want a new head coach. You got Brady in there, you got Seymour, you got all these different guys. And it's just unfortunate because Antonio Pierce, he deserves to be a coach, and he definitely deserves more than 1 year.
Yeah. Coach, you mentioned a great point on Sunday. Think about Dan Campbell and the Lions. They didn't win a game until December. His first year. And then when we asked Jared Goff about it after the game on Sunday Night Football final, what did he say? That win we got over Minnesota in December all of a sudden became the launch pad for what we've now built. And they're the 1 seed in the NFC just a few years later.
And everybody's saying that this is the model franchise now, but they stayed with him through the hard time. I look at Cincinnati and the same thing. And Coach Taylor, his first year, they don't win. His second year, they don't win. They stay with him. In the third year, they're in the Super Bowl. History tells you that you build continuity, and that's how you do it. This doesn't make sense. And I'm with Rodney. If I'm a Ben Johnson, do I want to go to the Raiders when that's the type of impatience they've shown? I don't know if I want to take that job.
And guys, you got to look at too, when they hired the general manager, they didn't hire the general manager and the coach together in both instances with the Raiders
Yes.
and the Patriots. They hire the general manager, and if they figure out who the coach is, those guys aren't, uniquely tied together.
Yep.
So that's something that, if you're looking at it from from objective standpoint, you're saying, okay, this general manager didn't bring this guy in, so ultimately he's going to want his own guy, and I think that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could have anybody under the sun coaching Vegas or New England this year, and you were going to have very similar results. I mean, those were just not built to win rosters. They didn't have quarterbacks, and New England had a rookie quarterback. You look at the guys in Vegas, and it's a bunch of backup quarterbacks on that roster, and you go win games. It's like, you got to give me some time to build this thing. And coach, it's not only the head coaches, it's defensive coordinators as well. Lou Anarumo, been there 6 years with the Cincinnati Bengals. He was the D coordinator on that Super Bowl run. He's a guy that's proven to have great game plans for Patrick Mahomes, and he's fired at the end of this year. Your thoughts on that one?
I was reading that. I thought it was a misprint. I really did. I could not even fathom it. They said, Cincinnati is going to be interviewing defensive coordinators. I said, what are they talking about? It just really doesn't make sense to me. I saw in Seattle, Mike McDonald let his offensive coordinator go after 1 year. Same thing. You just hired the guy. You guys won 10 games. Geno Smith made $9 million in incentives. And you're telling me you're letting your offensive coordinator go after 1 year? I really don't understand it.
Yeah, and for me, I didn't understand it either, Coach. Every time we have the Bengals, we have an opportunity to spend some time with him and talk game plan. He's always a good, cordial guy, very respectful. I think he's done a really good job with that defense they let Jesse Bates walk out of there, an all-pro safety, and they replaced him with Geno Stone, who had formerly played as a cornerback. And then you don't have a pass rusher opposite Trey Hendrickson. He's getting 2 and 3 sacks a game, and he's getting double and triple team. They just got a lot of young talent in the secondary. Those guys, Cam Taylor-Britt and Jordan Battle, they just weren't ready to play. And you start letting good football players walk up out the door, not re-signing guys like Jamar Chase, not even addressing the T. Higgins situation. I think the organization is kind of in disarray. They need to figure out what direction they want to go in. You got Jamar Chase, and you won't even pay him. Come on, Jack, this is your team. Tell me, am I wrong? Like, what's going on with him?
Hey, I said all along, you got to pay him early. You're going to pay him. You could have walked in that building and talked to all their personnel guys from Mike Brown on down, and they all would have told you, we're going to pay Jamar Chase. We're going to do this deal. But we want to wait, and we want to do it after this year. Now, the problem is, it was already going to be a big price tag. That price tag has only ballooned since. He had this huge year, and I think Joe Burrow got involved with Jamar and said, we're going to make this an even bigger year. It was clear that they were pursuing that triple crown throughout the course of this year to anybody that watched them play. And now they also have lingering over that, the T. Higgins situation where Burrow's saying, we need him back too. And so I'm with you, Rod. I don't think you can pay 2 receivers that kind of money, especially with what they did this year on the defensive side of the ball, Coach. How do you see that?
Yeah, and I want to go back to Lou Anarumo. We did several Cincinnati games. All the time we're on the sideline, you never heard a player say, oh, we weren't prepared, we aren't ready, I don't like what our defensive staff is doing. They're all so fired up about coach and their game plans. I don't understand it. I do not understand it.
Coach, we watch the games and we see that, he tries to make adjustments. If he doesn't have the players out there to be able to make those plays, it's only so much you can do as a defensive coordinator. You try to protect your guys. Okay, let's play 2 safeties deep. Then you can't stop the run. You go and say, okay, let's try to play some man-to-man. Let's do a couple blitzes here and there where you confuse the quarterback, but then something ends up happening because you don't have depth on the defensive line. You don't have enough good players. And I just think that he was set up to fail. There's no reason why this man deserved to get fired. He loved those Bengals. He loved working with those young guys. You just need to get him some football players in there. Myles Murphy was a first-round draft choice, and he doesn't even play. Are you kidding me? You draft this guy in the first round, and he doesn't even play. So as a defensive coordinator, Coach, you've been a long-time defense coordinator. How do you make that adjustment? How do you coach if you don't have good players?
No, Did he lose a bunch of brain cells since the Super Bowl? Is that what happened? He was a great coach in the Super Bowl year, but now he's not. I don't understand.
He was a head coaching candidate. He was one of the hottest head coaching candidates coming off of that in 6 years. I mean, it is hard to have that kind of continuity for 6 years with a smart guy that's proven he can beat Mahomes. And in the AFC, what the heck else matters? And you know, the big thing from my perspective too, Coach, is looking at this, Rodney. And they got better throughout the course of this year. Like you said, they had to start playing young guys. Mike Hilton's still a great run defender. He's not the same guy against the pass. So they had to start playing some younger guys, and they got better throughout the course of the year. I would ride that momentum wave. He's going to go sign on with another team and make their defense better. There's no secret about what Lou Anarumo is going to do next. He's going to get picked up in 4 days.
Absolutely. And if you respect the coach, you're going to continue to play hard for the coach. And that's exactly what they did. They continued to play hard. They could have easily shut it down. They could have been like, okay, our offense is a top offense, but we're not very good on defense. They could have walked away with the tail between their legs. They didn't. They continue to come in, continue to fight. He continued to try to motivate them and push them. And then this is what he gets for all his effort. I just think it was a poor choice by Zach Taylor, and I think they'll be disappointed.
Yeah. So week 18 is an interesting one because you have teams that are, in the playoffs, and it's a matter of seeding. So the question comes down to a lot. Do you rest your players or do you play your guys? And we saw injuries in week 18. So what else is new there? Christian Watson tore his ACL. He's done for the year. Jordan Love has an elbow. We'll see what that looks like. There's been some optimism with those reports. Zay Flowers injured his knee on Saturday. That win against the Browns. So do you play the guys in week 18 or do you not? We've had this conversation with preseason. How does it differ in week 18, Coach?
Well, I think as a head coach, your job is to get your players ready. So when you get to week 18 and you've got everything locked up, you can't move up, you can't move down. Your job is to get your players ready for the postseason. And if you lose Christian Watson for the playoffs, in a game that really didn't matter, how would you feel? How can you explain that to your owner, your fans? And you can't rest everybody. But you got to take care of the guys that are going to be your franchise decision makers. So I understand that, and I think you owe it to your team to get those guys ready and rest the guys that you can rest.
Yeah, Coach. And even if you're not playing for winning the actual division, you're just playing for a seeding. For me, if I'm the head coach, I got to look at my players and say, okay, when was the last time we had our bye? How tired are they? And if they're tired, they're worn down, they need that rest. I'm going to take a week off, and we're in the playoffs. We're going to rest. We're going to recover mentally, emotionally, physically, and we're going to go out there and do our thing. So for me, rest is always important. I was part of the number 1 seed and number 2 seed, so we got a chance to rest at times, but I think that's the most important, especially week 18, this latter part of the season. You need that recovery.
Yeah, when I was a young guy with the Steelers, that's when I got to play. Those last couple of games when we had things locked up, I went in. That's when I got my interceptions. But also, I wanted Donnie Shell to be rested. I wanted him to be ready for the playoffs. So I went in, hey, we got to get things done. We got to play to the same level so that those guys can be ready to go. And, that was teamwork in our opinion.
Yeah, that's a great teamwork attitude, Coach. I'm with you on that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So sometimes I think casual fans don't realize, too, how beat up guys are by this point in the season. Like, I remember there was a group of Baltimore Ravens down here week 13, week 14 when their bye week hit. And just talking to them, and they started losing and slipping up a little bit prior to that bye week. That's a late in the season bye. Guys need a break, man. I mean, this season has just become an eternity, and then that's before the playoffs begin, and then they crank up the intensity level a little bit more once those playoffs start. So let's get into who is eating good in the neighborhood, and this is served by Applebee's. And guys, I think we got to go to the Detroit Lions. How about their defense? Holding the Vikings to 9 points. They were 3 of 16 on 3rd and 4th down, 0 of 3 on 4th down. They just shut the valve off on Minnesota, Rod. How did they do it with Detroit?
Man, they are playing with supreme confidence. You look at their defense coordinator, Aaron Glenn, and he challenged those guys. He said, look, I don't care how many guys are injured. I don't care who we have. We're going out there. This is the game plan. Guys, I want you to compete. And it was some individual performances of guys that really stepped up. Zadarius Smith played well. He brought a lot of energy. They said Jared Goff told us that Alex Angeloni came back and really gave them a spark and did a good job in coverage. But Amik Robertson, he was good on Justin Jefferson. But those guys were just out there competing, coach, having fun. And they just played with such a sense of urgency.
They did. And I know I went into the game thinking Detroit may not be the team that we think they're going to be in the playoffs, because offensively they're on fire, but defensively it's a struggle. And they showed me something. If they play this way in the playoffs, they're going to be tough to beat. That defense was on fire.
Yeah, and even Jared Goff, you think about Jared Goff when he was talking to us, Jack, in the post game, and how excited he was and how much he talked about the defense actually affecting and motivating the offense, pushing them. When you see a defense that's been really just absolutely ravaged and beat up, and you see those guys out there celebrating and competing with Justin Jefferson, and you look up, man, it gets you pumped up. It gets you excited on the offensive side of the ball.
It does. And really, they won this game in large part in the red area because Minnesota had scoring opportunities. They had 12 plays in the red zone and 0 touchdowns. 0 touchdowns. And I know they had some opportunities. Like I think Sam Darnold will be thinking about the one to Justin Jefferson where he was really open and is just a little too far and they were a little off. But 12 plays, no touchdowns. Those are pretty sweet numbers for the Lions, Coach.
No, they really were. And Minnesota had been playing very well on offense. They were scoring points to shut them down, and they held them in check till the second half where their offense got going. It was really a wonderful performance by that defense.
Hey, Coach, think about this. This Minnesota Viking offense had been rolling all year. And they end up playing against Detroit, and Detroit did the best job of any defense on them all year long and made Sam Darnold look average. This is a guy, guys, we're talking about, we're throwing $100 million his way. We're saying he's going to get paid $150 million. And they did a heck of a job against this guy. So we'll see if Darnold can bounce back. But Detroit Lions, man, that defense, I got a lot of confidence in those dudes now.
Yeah, the thing that got me is we were on the post game and looking at that stat sheet. Addison and Jefferson, 15 targets, 4 completions for some minuscule, 50 yards. It was just, you just don't see that happen with those two guys. And all the credit to those Detroit DBs.
And also, Coach, Kevin O'Connell, man, normally in those situations, we've seen him be very, very conservative, take the points, kick the field goal, and then he got out of character like, okay, this is not Kevin O'Connell going for it on 4th down. So the Detroit Lions, the way they play, they force you to get out of character, and that's what we saw against Minnesota.
You're right. Fewest attempts on 4th down all year, while the Lions, the highest rate of going for it on 4th down. So we talked about in the pregame, there's contrast to styles, and then the actual game flipped. And Coach O'Connell felt like he had to chase some points, where if they had taken those threes, they'd have had the lead in that first half. They'd have had a 1-2 point lead in that first half. Different game.
Yep.
Coach, that's what we was talking about. We were sitting there saying, what is he doing? Just kick the field goal. You're going to be up. It's a close game. It's a defensive game. Yeah, we want it to be a shootout. It's more of a defensive game. And Coach is sitting there like, you got to take the points, frustrated. We're sitting there on the couch looking like, what is going on?
Don't leave your game plan.
That's it. All right, let's check out the wild card schedule, gentlemen. This is what we have coming your way. So you have the Steelers and the Ravens, Green Bay heading into Philly. The Sunday night game, I think, is just going to be so fun with those quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels and Baker Mayfield and Primetime. And then, of course, that Monday night game. So that's the Vikings in LA. Minnesota has to hit the road now, and that's really probably where they'll be throughout the playoffs. And on a Monday, Coach, even if they win that, what's coming their way next?
Yeah, they will probably go to the number 1 seed who has a bye and 14 days rest. And I don't like that at all, Jack. That game needs to be moved up into that Saturday slot. I know it's money. I know it's ABC and Monday Night Football, but that is so unfair in the playoffs. That 4-5 matchup, if you win that game, you more than likely are going on the road next week to a team that's got 14 days rest. It's just not fair, and I think the league needs to change that.
Yeah, and it's almost impossible for the Vikings. I mean, they play a tough
Yeah.
game at Detroit. They play a tough game in Detroit. Now they got to fly to LA. They don't get back to Tuesday morning sometime. Then it's going to take to about Friday for you to feel fresh and ready to go. And then you have to come right back and play. What would that be, Saturday or Sunday, Coach?
Sunday again, but you have to fly again. And that's we saw Dan Campbell tell Kevin O'Connell, we'll see you in 2 weeks. He knew what that meant to, we'll be resting for 2 weeks while you guys fly to LA and then fly back to see us on a short week.
Wow.
Just not fair at all. Not fair at all.
Yeah.
He's
and
right.
That was top of mind for Jared Goff, too, because remember when we were talking to Goff after the game, he was saying we're still recovering from our West Coast trip. We're still sleep deprived. So had they lost, they would have been taking that cross country.
They had to do it again.
Come back. So that was what made that game so huge. One of the biggest Week 18 games I can remember in recent memory. 2 14-win teams felt like fighting for their playoff lives.
Hey, guys, but I would tell you this, Coach, and I know you agree, that is the best home field advantage in the playoffs, in the entire NFL. Now, Jack, we're all standing there with the player introductions. I've never heard player introductions that loud, that emotional. And that, I'm telling you, man, that's a real weapon for the Detroit Lions. That fan base is tremendous, Coach.
We're walking around on the field. We usually go down there about 6 p.m. talking to players. People are coming in. It was loud at 7 o'clock, and the game doesn't kick off until 8:20. These people can't keep it up this long, but they did. They were on fire the whole game.
Shoot, they were out there at 12:30. We were interviewing Goff, just chanting Jared Goff. Like, this is like the greatest thing that happened there in the last 50 years, if not more. Coach, you grew up there. It's like the greatest thing in Detroit, Michigan history.
It really has been. And we had Calvin Johnson on. Barry Sanders said the same thing. In their whole careers, it's never been like that. The city is just on fire behind their team right now.
And Coach Campbell's done such a great job too, Jack. My last point. He's done such a great job of inviting those guys back into the organization. It means so much when you're in a locker room and you see some of those older guys that have really established and been Hall of Famers and great players to come back. And even, just to bond with a guy like Calvin Johnson. He's a smart, really intelligent guy. You know how much he has to offer Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams and those guys. So having those guys around, man, means a lot. Just being able to interact and just have them as a resource.
Ain't no doubt about that. Ain't no doubt about that. We saw the same thing the week prior in Washington with what Bobby Wagner was getting with some of the coach from Doug Williams, right? I mean, so there's tremendous value in that. Let's get to Washington and Tampa Bay. So, Coach, this is a home game for you. I look at the whole slate of the games, and I am so fired up about these two quarterbacks. I mean, these quarterbacks, like I'm like, who is going to win this game? And to me, that's the mark of we got one heck of a game on Sunday Night Football.
We really do. You've got both teams with good running games, explosive backs, good receivers, very good defenses, but the quarterbacks are the driving force. And these guys, they're going to be special. They're going to put on a show, and I'm not sure who's going to win it, but one quarterback is going to stand out and make the plays for his team, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Coach, you talk about those quarterbacks. You look at Baker Mayfield. He is just so fun to watch. It's just the competitiveness, the toughness. His teammates love him. Then you look at Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's completely opposite to a certain degree. Quiet assassin, that's what I call him. I mean, he makes everything look so easy, and he does it with a smile on his face. I'm like, dude, you're a rookie quarterback, and you out here like laughing and joking and playing like it's no big deal. I mean, it's just tremendous, the level of respect. And the word that, everyone talks about with Jay Daniels is humility. And he doesn't like the praise. He always wants to put it on his teammates, man. And when I see the kid talk, when I listen to him, I'm like, Coach, they made a special one right there. And then, of course, Baker Mayfield, man, he is just the ultimate competitor. So I can't wait, man. I'm pumped for this game.
It is going to be exciting. And I have to say this, the New Orleans Saints hung in there with Tampa last week, and they had a young quarterback who was mobile. They did some things, getting him out of the pocket and getting rid of the ball quick to negate that Tampa blitz. I think Washington take something from that, learn something from that game plan. I wouldn't be surprised seeing Jaden Daniels move around a little bit, throwing the ball quick early, and we'll see how Tampa responds.
Yeah, and I think Todd Bowles is going to be ready for that, Coach. I think he understands that this quarterback, he moves around a lot. I think he's going to do a great job of emphasizing disguise and a lot of simulated blitzes. It looked like it's 5 or 6 guys coming when it's only 4 guys coming. So he will have a plan. I'm excited, though.
We talk so often about in the AFC, who's going to go into Kansas City and finally knock these guys out of the postseason. If you had to say right now, one of these NFC teams, somebody's going to have to go in there to Detroit, and they're going to have to enter that fold of all those fans and the wild noise we talked about with the Lions. Who would you take right now? Coach, I'll start with you. Who of these teams do you think can go in there and knock off the Lions?
I think Philadelphia is the team because they can dominate up front, offensively and defensively, and hang in there with the Lions' big offensive line. They can put pressure on the quarterback without blitzing. I think we're headed for a Philly-Detroit showdown.
No question about it. You talk about Philly and their improved defense with Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond and them guys. They have the speed and the size to match up with them in the defensive line and the front line. They got the fast linebackers, really good, young, experienced secondary that had an opportunity to get a lot of reps this year. And, offensively, they should get that spark with Jalen Hurts coming back. Saquon Barkley, he's fresh, is healthy. The receivers, they're chilling. They're rested. They're ready to go, man. I'm with you, Coach. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think any of these other teams can go into Detroit. And what we saw Detroit do in Detroit at home, nobody's beating them but Philly.
I totally agree with both of you guys. All right, Rod, I got a tweet for you. This is on Myles Garrett. We'll get you out of here on this. Let's see what they're saying about Myles. What do we got here, Berkey?
Nobody did. I get that jersey after. Hey, you in the league, y'all winning games, y'all looking great. Ain't never nobody. I got you. You got me? Yeah. Appreciate you.
Guys, I will tell you this. When I saw that, Coach, it just brought chills down my arms because as much as we compete against each other, it's the level of love and respect that we have for one another. And we're out there fighting and clawing. And, you're talking to the defensive player of the year of last year and a guy that potentially could win it this year. And just the humility of a Myles Garrett to speak to that man's life and give him the confidence. That's something that young offensive player, he'll never forget. And that's why, Coach, I had said on our post-game show, the Browns need to go and they need to just release or trade Myles Garrett and get him in a situation where he can experience winning. He doesn't deserve this. He needs to be part of a winning organization where he can experience playoffs and things like that, even if he, seems like he has to take a little less money, which he shouldn't. But yeah, Myles Garrett deserves a lot better than that, but very classy move by him. I was thoroughly impressed and touched.
No, that was a tremendous piece. And it just reminds you, back in the day, we used to go against the Raiders. Every year we're going to have to beat them to get to the Super Bowl. We're going to play the Cowboys over and over. But that mutual respect was always there. And that's what that was, no question.
And every year and every game that goes by, Cleveland looks a little more insane for letting Baker Mayfield walk out that door. They had him play that last year when he was hurt and banged up. And then they acted like, oh, you can't play even though you're trying to gut it out for us while you're hurt. And they ship him all around the country, Carolina, LA, you name it. He finds a home with Tampa Bay, and look where he is. Am I right? I mean, it's like they tried to go throw money at their problem and sign Watson, and it just blew up right in their face.
Well, and that's like Rodney was saying about Myles Garrett. Baker Mayfield, now he's at a place where he can flourish, gets a chance to be in the playoffs and show what he can do. And that's what you want for all those great players.
That's it. I can't wait, guys. We're off. It's Florida week. It is Florida week.
And Coach has a home game.
I cannot wait to see you guys.
No plane ride
in
for
the
me.
home of Coach, Washington and Tampa Bay, Sunday night. The playoffs have arrived. See you guys there.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights From NBC Sports.